What if you could see infrared light? It started the morning Mira opened her eyes and the world was no longer the same. The room looked different, not just brighter or dimmer, but tinted in warm, pulsing hues that seemed to come from nowhere. Her bedsheets glowed with faint reds and oranges. The window, though still closed, seemed to shimmer as if a heat source were behind it. The mirror across the room was fogged not with condensation, but with strange blooming colors that danced with every move she made. At first, she thought she was dreaming, but when she blinked and the colors remained, shifting slightly with each breath and heartbeat, she realized something was fundamentally different. Her vision had expanded beyond the rainbow. She could see infrared light. She didn't understand it at first. Most of us don't think about what we can't see. Infrared sits just beyond the visible spectrum, past the red our eyes can register. It's the realm of heat, of warmth, of things alive and moving, and now Mira could see it. The first few days were overwhelming. People on the street weren't just people anymore, they were radiant bodies glowing in shades of crimson and gold. Every living thing stood out like a bonfire in a cold room. Cats curled in windows burned like tiny suns. Cars with warm engines shimmered. The pavement, still holding onto the heat of the midday sun, rippled with invisible light. At night, she saw the world come alive in a new way. While most humans were surrounded by darkness, Mira wandered through city parks where every tree trunk retained the sun's warmth. Every squirrel or raccoon stood out against the cooler background like a flare. Streetlights became irrelevant. She no longer needed them. But it wasn't all wonder. Seeing in infrared meant she could no longer ignore things others didn't notice. A sick man walking past glowed faintly less than others, his body temperature subtly off. She began noticing tension in couples by the way heat rose to their faces, or how quickly their hands cooled when they let go of each other. She saw the stress in people's bodies before they ever spoke a word, spikes of heat around their temples, or a strange flicker in their chest. She couldn't unsee pain, or secrets. On crowded buses, she saw who had cried recently by the thermal traces on their faces. In classrooms, students who felt embarrassed or anxious were surrounded by silent storms of heat. She began avoiding eye contact, not for shame, but for mercy. Eye sockets, even when calm, radiated the warmest part of the body, and sometimes they flared like furnaces during moments of joy, anger, or fear. Glass no longer served as a barrier, it filtered visible light, but infrared passed through. She could see people in cars, in buildings, behind frosted windows. Privacy faded. Even in pitch-black rooms, there were no secrets from her vision. Her world was never truly dark again. And her own reflection began to haunt her. Mirrors no longer worked properly. They didn't reflect infrared well, so she saw a ghost of herself, dim, disconnected. But when she looked down at her hands, they were alive, glowing with heat and blood in motion. She was a creature of light, not the static image she once believed herself to be. Science took notice. When she finally revealed her condition, doctors and physicists ran tests. They found nothing unusual, no implants, no mutations they could explain. Some speculated her visual receptors had spontaneously evolved. Others thought it was neurological. But Mira didn't care about the how, not anymore. She cared about what it meant. She learned to live with it. She wore tinted glasses to dampen the constant glare of heat. She practiced filtering out the most distracting wavelengths. Over time, her brain adjusted, forming a kind of second sight, layering infrared atop the visible world like an augmented reality. And she wasn't alone for long. Others began to emerge, rare individuals with the same expanded perception. A community formed, secret at first, then more open. They called themselves the Emberborn. They created art in infrared, music inspired by patterns of heat and motion. Their gatherings didn't need lights. They moved together like dancers in a glowing fog. With time, humanity adapted. Infrared became a language. Thermal cues replaced small talk. Relationships grew deeper or ended faster as people could no longer hide behind words. Governments, of course, tried to regulate it. They called it a surveillance threat, but they couldn't control what eyes could see. For Mira, the greatest change wasn't in what she saw, but in what she felt. Seeing warmth meant sensing life in everything. The heartbeat of the city, the heat left by a friend's hand on a table, the invisible signature of a stranger's grief, fading slowly from the sidewalk where they had once wept. She no longer feared the dark. She no longer feared the unknown. Because now, in a world revealed by heat and motion and hidden truths, she could finally see what was always there, waiting, just beyond the red.